Diana's world darkened. The pregnancy she had dreamed of suddenly turned into a bitter lump in her throat. Betrayal from her beloved husband with her best friend struck like lightning from a clear sky. "I'm pregnant." Her friend Julia's words echoed in Diana's mind like a broken record. "Your husband, Victor Green. He won't be just yours for much longer. Look. What ring he already bought me. And he even proposed." "A what?" It seemed Diana would just collapse from her chair. Straight onto the floor. "My husband? A proposal? To you? And what about me? You're just a nobody, Diana. You can't give birth to his child. And Victor dreams of an heir so much. By the way, will you be the godmother to our son? Oh no. You, of course, won't be anywhere near our family." Diana couldn't believe her ears. Her world was crumbling before her eyes, turning into a gray and cold desert. Her beloved, with whom she dreamed of a happy life of children, betrayed her with her closest confidant. "How could you?" Diana whispered, feeling tears filling her eyes. Julia smirked cunningly. "Oh, why not? Victor loves me. And I love him. And you're just a worthless and barren mistake in his life." Diana felt anger boiling inside her. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms. "You'll regret this," she gritted through her teeth. "I won't forgive you for this." Running out of the cafe, Diana gulped down fresh air, trying to hold back her hysteria. Her life shattered into tiny fragments, and she didn't know how to piece it back together. At home, she collapsed onto her bed, crying into her pillow. Deep depression engulfed her. She didn't want to eat, drink, or talk to anyone. The phone rang incessantly, but Diana didn't answer. She didn't want to talk to Victor, to Julia, or to anyone else. She didn't know what to do next. Life lost its meaning. Days dragged on slowly like a cart in the mud. Diana didn't want to do anything, she wasn't interested in anything. She turned into a shadow, a ghost. One morning, as Diana lay in bed, the sounds of a familiar voice reached her ears. "Diana, honey, wake up," her mother spoke gently. Diana didn't want to open her eyes, but her mother persisted. She sat on the edge of the bed and took her daughter's hand. "Diana, what happened to you?" she asked, looking at her daughter with deep concern. Diana sighed and turned away. "I'm fine, Mom," she lied, trying to force a weak smile. "Don't lie to me, honey," her mother embraced Diana. "I can see you're suffering. Tell me what happened." Diana didn't want to tell anything, but her mother's sincere and gentle pleading made it impossible for her to refuse. She told her mother everything about Victor's betrayal, about Julia's pregnancy, about the pain and despair overwhelming her. Her mother listened silently, clutching a handkerchief in her hands. When Diana finished, she sighed. "I'm sorry, my dear," she said softly. "But you're strong, you'll get through this. Don't let them break you." Diana looked at her mother in surprise. She didn't expect such words from her. Their relationship had always been somewhat strained. She remembered constant hints that Diana was wasting her time with boys, quiet condemnation for not rushing to build a career like her brother. "How can I cope, Mom? My world is falling apart." "You're stronger than you think." Her mother stood up and walked to the window, her silhouette sharply outlined against the bright sky. "And you're not alone. I'm here with you." Her mother's embrace was an unexpectedly warm support in this difficult time. It was exactly the moment when Diana needed support the most. She couldn't remember her mother ever hugging her like this, ever showing such empathy. Suddenly, childhood memories surfaced from the depths of her mind. Her mother, always busy with work, perpetually dissatisfied with something. She never showed particular tenderness towards Diana except when she was very young. "Mom, why didn't you treat me like this before?" Diana asked, lifting her head. Her mother turned and sat beside her on the bed. "A life can be complicated, sweetheart," she sighed. "Sometimes we make mistakes, prioritize incorrectly. But the most important thing is to acknowledge our mistakes and try to correct them." Her mother fell silent for a few seconds as if collecting her thoughts. "I'm also to blame," she finally said. "I didn't pay enough attention to you, didn't see how much you were suffering. But now I'm here and I'll always be here for you, no matter what." Diana felt tears welling up in her eyes. For the first time in many years, she felt genuine support from her mother. It was as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her and she could breathe freely again. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered, hugging her mother in response. "I really need your help." After the conversation with her mother, life began to improve. Diana realized that she couldn't let Victor's and Julia's betrayal ruin her life. She had to be strong for herself and for her future child. The first thing to do was to confirm the pregnancy. Diana called her gynecologist and made an appointment. She was nervous, but not as much as before. Now she had her mother, her support and strength. Next was the question of housing. Right now she and Victor were living in an apartment they bought on credit together. Diana remembered how he insisted on a joint mortgage and how she, naive, agreed. "We'll have to terminate the agreement," her mother said when Diana shared her thoughts. "You shouldn't owe him anything anymore." Diana agreed. She didn't want anything to do with Victor anymore. She wanted to start a new life, independent and self-reliant. The hardest part was telling Victor about her decision. She knew he would argue, accuse, but she didn't care anymore. She was no longer afraid of him. Diana decided to wait for his return from his latest business trip. She wanted this conversation to happen face-to-face, without any unnecessary witnesses. The days dragged on. Diana busied herself with preparations for her future departure, gathering information about renting apartments. She also prepared herself for the conversation with Victor, carefully considering every word to not succumb to his possible manipulations. Finally, Victor returned. Diana heard the sound of the key in the lock and tension grew in her body. She sat in the kitchen, holding a cup of tea, trying to look calm. "Diana," he exclaimed in surprise upon seeing her. "Victor, we need to talk," she said, trying to speak calmly though her voice trembled slightly. He frowned and sat opposite her at the table, not understanding the seriousness of the situation. Diana told him everything about Julia's betrayal, about her pregnancy, about her decision to end their relationship. She didn't expect his reaction. At first he just stayed silent, his face frozen in a mask of shock. Then anger flared up. "This is a lie," he burst out, hitting the table with his hand. "Julia didn't say anything. You're just making this up to get rid of me." Diana wasn't scared of his shouting. She had stopped being afraid of him a long time ago. "I'm not lying," she said firmly. "And I'm not planning to get rid of anyone. I just don't want to be with you anymore." He stood up from his chair, his face turning red. "Are you out of your mind?" he yelled. "After all these years, you're just throwing me out onto the street? What about the apartment? What about the loan?" Diana understood his concern. The apartment was nice, spacious, they had chosen it together and had it renovated. But she couldn't live under the same roof with him anymore. "I will terminate the agreement," Diana replied calmly. "And I'll pay off the loan myself." "Yourself? With what? You can't even drive a nail into a wall." His voice rose to a falsetto. Diana felt a wave of anger rising within her. She wouldn't let him belittle her anymore. She had become strong, independent, and no longer needed his protection. "And now I can drive nails and break walls if I want," she said, her voice taking on a steely tone. "And most importantly, I can build my own life, without you and your Julia." Victor fell silent. He didn't expect such determination from Diana. He was used to her always giving in to him, staying silent when he shouted. He opened his mouth to say something, but then just waved his hand and stormed out of the kitchen, slamming the door behind him. Diana was left alone. She felt empty but at the same time free. She was no longer a victim of circumstances. She was the mistress of her own life. And now she was ready to move forward towards her future, the future of a strong, independent mother. Victor never showed up again. Diana didn't know where he stayed, and she didn't want to know. She was too busy with her own affairs. The first step was to terminate the loan agreement. Diana consulted a lawyer who helped her prepare all the necessary documents. It wasn't easy because the apartment was in both their names. But Diana was determined. She didn't want to have anything more to do with Victor. Finally, they reached an agreement. Diana bought out his share of the apartment, taking on a new mortgage herself. It wasn't easy as she had to significantly cut down on her expenses. But she was willing to do anything to get rid of the memories of the past. The next step was to find a new place to live. Diana wanted to find a small but cozy apartment where she could raise her child. She searched on her own, without the help of real estate agents. She wanted to choose the place herself, where her family would live. After several weeks of searching, she finally found what she was looking for. A small but bright apartment in a newly built building, just what she needed. Diana moved into the new apartment a few weeks before giving birth. She was happy. She was starting a new life, a life without Victor, without betrayal, without pain. The childbirth went smoothly. Diana gave birth to a healthy girl whom she named Alice. Alice was a little copy of Diana, the same dark eyes, the same black hair. Diana looked at her daughter and felt infinite love spreading in her heart. She was a happy mother. She raised her daughter herself, and she didn't need anyone else. Victor showed up a few times trying to come back. He promised to change, begged for forgiveness. But Diana was unwavering. She didn't want anything more to do with him. She lived her life, her concerns. She worked from home, writing texts for websites, raising her daughter. Alice grew up as a healthy and happy girl. She was her mother's joy, her mother's reason for living. Diana no longer regretted what happened. She knew that everything that happened to her had made her stronger, wiser. She was grateful to have Alice, her little happiness, her little life. Once, when Diana was walking with Alice in the park, she saw a familiar figure. It was Julia. She was pushing a stroller with a little child. Diana met her gaze. Julia flinched and quickly looked away. Diana just smiled. She didn't hold any grudge against Julia. She even felt sorry for her. Unlike Diana, Julia couldn't build happiness on someone else's misery. And Diana and Alice moved on, rejoicing in every day, every new discovery. They were together, and that was the most important thing. Several years passed. Alice, a little copy of Diana, turned into a smart, curious girl with lively eyes and an endless supply of energy. Diana handled the role of a single mother well. She worked as a freelancer writing articles for various websites, which allowed her to be home with Alice most of the day. Although sometimes it was tough. There were days when fatigue accumulated and she longed for just an hour of peace and quiet. But Alice always cheered her up. On one such day when Diana was working on her laptop and Alice was playing in her room, her mother called. "Hi, Mom," Diana's mother's voice sounded worried. "I have news." "Not very good." "What happened?" Diana asked, concerned. "Your brother was in an accident," her mother informed her. "He broke his leg and is now in the hospital. The doctors say he needs surgery." Diana felt disheartened. Her brother Maxim had always been close to her. They often saw each other and helped each other out. "Is he alone?" Diana asked. "And Dad?" "Dad, as always, is busy," her mother sighed. "So I thought maybe you could visit him? He'll be glad to see you." Diana understood that her mother needed support. But the thought of the trip scared her. She was used to her usual rhythm of life and she didn't want to disrupt it. "Mom, I don't know," she replied uncertainly. "Alice will have to miss school." "Don't worry about Alice," her mother reassured her. "I'll take care of her. And you go to your brother. He needs you." Diana thought for a few minutes. She couldn't leave her brother alone in such a situation. "Okay," she finally said. "I'll try to come tomorrow." The next day, Diana and Alice were already on their way to the hospital. The road was long and Alice kept asking questions. "Why does Uncle Maxim have a broken leg?" she asked, frowning her little face. "He fell accidentally," Diana replied, not going into details. "Do adults fall too?" Alice wondered. "Of course," Diana smiled. "All people sometimes fall. But then they get up and move on." "And will Uncle Maxim get up and walk?" "Yes, definitely," Diana assured her. "He'll recover quickly." When they arrived at the hospital, Maxim was lying in a white room with a cast on his leg. He looked pale and somewhat bewildered. "Diana," he exclaimed, seeing her. "What are you doing here?" "We came to visit you," Diana replied, approaching his bed. "Mom told me about the accident." Maxim looked at Alice, who shyly hid behind her mother. "Who's this?" he asked. "This is Alice, my daughter," Diana proudly replied. "She's getting so big." They started talking. Maxim told her about the accident, about how scary it was for him to lie alone in the hospital. Diana told him about her life, about work, about Alice. The more they talked, the more Diana realized how much she missed communicating with her brother. Their relationship had always been close, but lately, due to work, they rarely saw each other. Now, sitting by his bedside, she felt the warmth of a loved one that she hadn't noticed before amidst the hectic pace of life. For the next few days, Diana and Alice spent a lot of time in the hospital. They helped Maxim with little things, told him the news, and Alice, with her childish stories and questions, lifted his spirits. One day, as Diana helped Maxim with his lunch, he unexpectedly asked, "How do you manage with Alice all by yourself? Isn't it difficult?" Diana smiled. "It can be tough," she admitted. "But Alice is my joy, my pride. And I wouldn't trade her for anyone." Maxim remained silent for a while, looking thoughtfully out the window. Then he said, "You know you're strong." "I always knew that, but somehow didn't pay attention. You're raising a child on your own, working, and yet you look so happy." I am happy," Diana replied, stroking Alice's head. "I have everything I need." She didn't tell him about Victor's betrayal, about how difficult it was for her in the beginning. Now it seemed like a distant past. Maxim nodded as if thinking about something. Then he turned to her again. Listen, have you ever thought about finding someone you know for Alice? So she doesn't grow up alone. Diana was surprised. She had never thought about it. She was so happy with Alice alone that she couldn't even imagine anyone else beside them. I don't know, she replied uncertainly. I feel like I can give her everything myself. You're strong, that's true, Maxim repeated. But Alice needs a male influence, a father. Someone who will protect her, teach her something new. Diana remained silent, pondering his words. She understood that her brother was right. But the idea of letting someone into their lives, into Alice's life, scared her. Think about it, Maxim said, seeing her doubts. In the meantime, I can introduce you to some of my colleagues. There are some decent guys among them. Diana laughed. Oh, Max, are you already playing matchmaker? I just want to help, her brother winked. You deserve happiness, Diana. And so does Alice. After Maxim was discharged from the hospital, Diana began to see him more often. They would take walks together with Alice, go to the park, and sometimes even venture out of town. One day, while they were having lunch at a cafe, Maxim introduced his colleague Andrei to their table. Diana, this is Andrei, my colleague, Maxim introduced him. And this is my sister Diana and her daughter Alice. Andrei turned out to be a pleasant young man. He talked a lot about his work, his hobbies, listened attentively to Alice, who incessantly told him about her favorite doll. They had a pleasant evening, and when Diana and Alice were already heading home, she suddenly realized that she didn't want to say goodbye to Andrei at all. She didn't know if it was a feeling of attraction or if she just enjoyed the company of a nice person. Diana couldn't get the meeting with Andrei out of her mind. She remembered his sincere smile, his attentive eyes, his interest in Alice. She herself didn't notice how she started to think about him more often. She liked imagining how they would spend time together, taking walks with Alice, going on picnics. One day Maxim called her and suggested meeting with Andrei again. He wants to get to know you better, he said. I think you two could become friends. Diana didn't know what to say. She was pleased that Andrei wanted to see her, but she was afraid of disappointment. I don't know, she replied uncertainly. What if it doesn't work out? Just try, her brother reassured her. You won't lose anything. Diana agreed. She understood that she couldn't live in the past, that she needed to move on. The second meeting with Andrei went even better than the first. They talked a lot, laughed, and Alice happily played with Andrei, feeling his genuine kindness. After this meeting, Diana could no longer deny her feelings. She liked Andrei and she wanted to be with him. Their relationship developed gradually. They often met, went to the movies, the theater, and went out into nature. Andrei sincerely loved Alice, treating her as his own daughter. Alice also grew fond of him, eagerly sharing her secrets and boasting about her accomplishments. Diana saw how happy Alice was with Andrei, and that was the most important thing for her. One day, while they were walking in the park, Andrei stopped and, taking Diana's hand, said, Diana, I want to be with you. You and Alice have become the most precious people to me. Diana couldn't hold back her tears. She had been waiting for these words for so long. I want to be with you too, she whispered. They got married a year later. It was a modest wedding, attended only by their closest friends and family. Maxim was happy for his sister. He knew that Andrei was the right person for her. Diana finally found her happiness. She lived with a loving husband who adored her and her daughter. Alice grew up in love and harmony, surrounded by the care of two people who genuinely loved her. Diana often remembered the day she made the decision to end her relationship with Victor. It was the hardest decision of her life, but it was the right one. She thanked fate for giving her the chance to start over, and she never regretted what she did. Diana woke up to the happy laughter of Alice. She lay in Andre's arms feeling like the happiest woman in the world. The sun gently shone through the window, birds sang outside. It was a new day, a new life. She looked at Andre still asleep and smiled. She knew that everything would be fine now. Life with Andre was calm and happy. He was a wonderful husband and father. Alice adored him and he reciprocated her love. Diana no longer felt lonely. She knew she had a family, people who loved and cared for her. Once, Diana and Alice went to visit their mom. Maxim was there too. He happily told them that he had been promoted at work. Diana sincerely rejoiced for her brother. She knew he deserved it. The evening was calm and cozy. They sat at the table, drank tea, and talked. Diana looked at her family, her mom, Maxim, Andre, Alice. She felt happy. She found what she was looking for: love, family, comfort. And she knew that this happiness would always be with her. Diana's life went on. Alice grew up, becoming more curious and intelligent. She went to school, where she eagerly made new friends and explored the world. Andre immersed himself in his work, as his new position demanded a lot of energy and attention. However, he always found time for the family, sincerely interested in Alice's life, and supported Diana. Diana continued to work as a freelancer, which allowed her to be home with Alice when she wasn't at school. She also found time for a new hobby. She became passionate about painting, finding a source of inspiration and peace in it. One day, scrolling through her social media feed, Diana came across an announcement for a novice artist contest. Her enthusiasm for painting had captivated her so much that without hesitation, she decided to participate. Inspiration for her painting came from Alice. The girl sat on the windowsill, gazing thoughtfully at the sunset, while outside the window stretched an endless world full of mysteries and possibilities. Diana poured all her love for her daughter, all her belief in her happy future, into this work. Diana's painting unexpectedly won first place in the contest. It was not only recognition of her talent but also a powerful incentive for further development. She began to devote more time to painting, participated in exhibitions, and found new friends among artists. Andre sincerely supported her new passion, helped organize exhibitions, and believed in her success. Alice was proud of her mother, joyfully telling her friends about her paintings and sincerely believing that her mom was the most talented artist in the world. Diana's life turned into a kaleidoscope of new events, impressions, and creative achievements. She felt happy because she had loved ones who gave her inspiration and support, and her favorite activity gave her a sense of freedom and flight. Her story is not only a tale of love and happiness but also about never being too late to pursue your dreams, to discover new horizons, and to create a life filled with meaning and beauty. Thank you for being with us today. I hope that this story has brought you emotions. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell so you don't miss any of our new stories. Thank you for your support. You are the best.